Hello, everybody, and welcome to Common Knowledge's 2025 Pauper Awards. It's the Paupies. That's a stupid name, but we will probably keep it. 2025 saw a lot of Magic cards come out, and some of them were pretty good. Some of them were pretty bad. But I'm going to take a look at 25 of my favorite slash best common Magic the Gathering cards to come out this year. We'll kind of figure out what's good and what's my favorite. You might have other options. If you have other cards that you think should have made this list and didn't, please go ahead, put them in the comments. I know, like, a card, I guess this is like an honorable mention, but Salt Road Pack Beast is a cool card. That's a neat card, and probably in other years would have made this list. But there were some really good cards to talk about, and also one other honorable mention. So we have 26 cards to look at, and we will start with our number 26 as our honorable mention, and it is Brambleworm. So Brambleworm has come out before. It was in Innistrad Crimson Vow, but it was uncommon then. And this year, Innistrad Remastered came out. You probably forgot because it wasn't talked about. They just kind of, Wizards put it out, and then there's another whole set to put out. So we're doing previews. Who cares about Innistrad Remastered? But Innistrad Remastered did give us a downshift to common of Brambleworm. Brambleworm's not an incredible card by any stretch. I don't think it's blowing up the Pauper format or anything like that. But I like worms quite a bit. It's one of my favorite creature types. And this one's not too bad. 7 mana for a 7/6 reach trample. When it enters, you gain 5 life. And for 2 and a green, you can exile this card from your graveyard and you gain 5 life. So I think it works in a couple of different shells. One of them is I have a monster Tron deck that's mono green that just is making Tron and putting out big threats basically every turn. And this is a nice one to have as something that has trample, something that has reach, so it can stop a lot of those flyers. And the life gain's not insignificant at all. That's a pretty good chunk of life gain. Now, if you're going up against aggressive red decks, having 5 life come on turn 7 is not so good. You'll probably be dead by then. But in a Tron shell, you are making a lot of mana, or in any kind of ramping shell, you're making a lot of mana and can probably play this a lot earlier. It's also not too terrible for like a dredge deck, because you can mill this into your graveyard and you don't feel too bad about it because you can exile it from your graveyard and gain the life, or you can bring it back out as an exhume target or something like that. Get it out of the graveyard, put it on the battlefield, and you also feel pretty good about that too, because it's a 7/6 and it also would gain you 5 life then too. I think this card has some value. I would like to see more reasons to play this card. And I think it's just a solid one. I think it's a really good downshift, and I'm happy to see it in Pauper now. So that was the only card that wasn't technically from this year, but it's kind of from this year. It's now available in Pauper for the first time in 2025. Let's go to our number 25 card. It is Curious Farm Animals from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Curious Farm Animals is a single white mana for a 1/1 boar, elk, bird, ox. And when this creature dies, you gain 3 life, and you can pay 2 and sacrifice this creature to destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. I don't think we've really seen where this card goes yet, but it does have a lot of utility on it. It's a body, it gains life when it dies, so it's an easy blocker, but it also can take out artifacts or enchantments. You can also decide when it dies, but you can choose when to sacrifice the creature at instant speed, by the way, and you gain the life then, and you get the naturalize effect or the disenchant effect. And those are all nice things. Like this could be something that you main board in a white weenie style deck, because you know that it's going to get some use out of the way. I mean, it could be in the sideboard as well, but I think because of the life gain, because of just the body that it offers, and having the disenchant effect be kind of this extra gravy that goes on it, I think this is a solid little card. And it kind of works like a food token, right? I think they purposely made this feel like a food token, paying to sacrificing the thing, and when you sacrifice it, you gain 3 life. That's what food does, and these are farm animals, so they turn into food at some point. Curious Farm Animals is my number 25. I think it's pretty good. Segu Wildling is my number 24. Segu Wildling is 4 and a green for a 3/3 dragon. It flies, and when this creature enters, you gain 3 life. But it also has this omen. This not quite an adventure. Omens are a little bit different, but it's got this omen sorcery called Roost Seek. For a single green mana, you can search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and then shuffle. And that's really why this is here. That you kind of get this Lay of the Land effect, which Lay of the Land, not a Pauper playable card. And I would say a 5 mana 3/3 flyer that gains you 3 life when it comes into play, also not a Pauper playable card. But when you stick them together, I think you start to kind of get something pretty cool. I think all of the Omen Dragons, the common Omen Dragons, are neat. I think they've all to some extent have a place in Pauper. But I think this is probably the best one for mana fixing. Really great for mana fixing. And then once you are able to play it, you then get a decent body and a little bit of life. Those are fine things. And I think this is just a solid little package. Not to mention that the Omen, instead of being on an adventure where it goes into exile and then you can play the creature half, the Omen shuffles it back into your deck. So if you do need a shuffle for some reason, if you play like a Brainstorm or something and then want to shuffle the cards that you put back away, Sega Wildling's a decent option for that. It's also something that you get back. You play this early, you play the Roost Seek early, and then sometimes you'll draw the Segu Wildling in the late game, and you'll be ready to play it in the late game. And if not, you can just Roost Seek again and shuffle it back in and grab another basic. I don't mind this card at all. I think it's really solid. I've used it in a Gruul Dragon deck shell before, and it does some great work there. It's a card I always love to see in that deck because I want to fix my mana, and then it's nice to have a nice dragon on the other side. Sega Wildling, pretty solid card. I don't know if it'll show up in a ton of Pauper decks, but as something that's so versatile, I really like it. It's my number 24. Next up is Spectacular Tactics, our first Spider-Man card, and not our last Spider-Man card. There were, as much as I don't like Spider-Man, in Magic at the very least, there were some halfway decent Spider-Man cards. Spectacular Tactics is one I have not seen people talk about or play as much. I haven't seen it in deck lists, but I don't think it's too bad. It's 1 and a white for an instant. You choose one. You either put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and it gains hexproof until end of turn, or you destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. Those are both good modes, and for 2 mana, I don't mind that modality at all. That versatility that you get. Generally, I would say if you're giving a white protection kind of spell, those are generally like 1 mana, like Lauren's Escape or something like that. Sometimes even free if you use the Phyrexian one that gives protection from a color. But the +1/+1 counter is not nothing. It's a nice little power toughness boost, and the hexproof can get you out of some sticky situations as well. So I don't mind that for 2 mana, and I also don't mind. It's a little different than Destroy Evil, but I think it kind of works in a similar way to Destroy Evil, where you have a conditional kill spell as well. Destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. There are plenty of those in Pauper. You think of your Cryptic Serpents, your Tolarian Terrors, your Gurmag Anglers, your Ulamog's Crusher, I guess if you're playing like a Tron kind of deck. There are a number of hits for this, and those are all going to be good hits. I think this is just a fine card that probably is more like sideboard playable, but I think it could even go in the main deck as a copy or two, just to have that versatility of whatever you need. Do you need to protect your creature? Do you need to destroy someone on the opponent's side? This has you covered on both. I think it's pretty good. That's my, what is that, number 23, 24? I've got this other list over here. 23, my 23. Number 22 is Instant Ramen from Final Fantasy. It's 2 mana for an artifact food. It's got flash. When this artifact enters, you draw a card, and it does the food thing. You can pay 2, tap and sack it to gain 3 life. I didn't love this card when it first came out. I didn't see the value in it as much. We have just kind of better foods, right? Like Lembas beats the shit out of this, right? Like the scry, the being able to go shuffle back into your library. I think for the most part, Lembas is just better. I would play Lembas basically every other time. I would play Eager Wellspring over this. I didn't really see the usefulness. But there's a couple of reasons that you might want to play this. One, it is another food, so it could potentially go into the Cauldron Familiar decks. I think it does. I don't know. I don't play Cauldron Familiar. I don't know Cauldron Familiar all that well, but I think it goes in there. And then the flash speed is kind of important. Yes, it's the joke that it's instant ramen, so it has to be played at instant speed. But having a food token, more or less, that you can play at instant speed and draws you a card, so it can trips itself, it replaces itself. That's all pretty nice. Having that at instant speed is pretty good for more blue style decks that want to hold up their mana. Maybe you don't want to play that Lembas and know that your mana's tied up. You can't react to whatever your opponent's doing. If you have instant ramen, now you can play it at the end of an opponent's turn when they're not doing anything, and that has some value to it. I still don't think it's the best. There's actually a couple of other foods on this list that I think do this mostly better. But I think instant ramen does have a place, and I'm starting to see the value. So that is my number 22. Number 21, Pinnacle Kill Ship. So this really only goes in one deck. I think it only really goes in the Tron lists, specifically the Tron lists that make bigger creatures, like not Eggs Tron. I would imagine. I would imagine not Eggs Tron. Maybe you could put it in there. Pinnacle Kill Ship is 7 mana for a 7/7 artifact spacecraft. And when this spacecraft enters, it deals 10 damage to up to 1 target creature. It also has Station for 7. It has Station, and then I'll tell you what the Station does. So Station says tap another creature you control, put charge counters equal to its power on this spacecraft. Station only as a sorcery. It's an artifact creature at 7+. So at 7+, this becomes a flying 7/7 spacecraft artifact creature. Stationing this is fine, especially if you're in one of those Monster Tron style decks that is able to, tap a giant creature and station this thing right away. But what is probably more useful is that those Tron style decks don't have a whole lot of removal options available to them. You're mostly going to be in green with those kinds of decks, and yeah, you can use like Ram Through and stuff like that, but they're like, those are all kind of conditional. And having something that just comes in and says, I do 10 damage to something, I will kill something on that board. This is pretty good. It can be a blink target, which is why it might actually work in Eggstron. You ghostly flicker this, you do another 10 damage to something else. That's not too bad. But being able to turn this into a 7/7 flyer makes it a finisher some days too. So having something that is both a removal card and a finisher gives you some kind of inevitability that I like. I didn't originally put this in my Monster Tron deck. It's still not in there, and I'm considering a couple different options of maybe this could go in there. Maybe a couple other options. I think Zuko's Exile is also pretty interesting. Zuko's Exile not on the list here, but that one is an interesting one as well, of a way to have some removal in more of a Tron deck. But I like, the more I see it played, the more I like Pinnacle Kill Ship. I think it does some cool things. And 7 mana, not very difficult in Tron. That is 7 mana is Tron mana. So you get that and you can play a kill ship. It's not too bad. Not too bad. That was number 21. Let's go to number 20, which is Forecasting Fortune Teller. right? 20? Yeah, it is 20. Forecasting Fortune Teller is 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human advisor ally. When this creature enters, you create a clue token. So it's a Thraben Inspector that costs 1 more and has 1 more point of toughness. Doesn't sound amazing, right? But blue doesn't mind this because now you don't have to play white. You could play a flickery, bouncy kind of strategy and just have it be blue, or blue and another color, but not. You don't have to have white. You don't have to have those Thraben Inspectors, those Novice Inspectors. Now, they still only cost 1, so it is nice to have those so you can play them on turn 1. But this isn't the worst thing to play on turn 2 if you're trying to use some different colors. You don't want to splash into white just for those guys. This is a way of getting your clue tokens. It's also a pretty decent blocker as a 1/3. Not too bad. But the other nice thing about this is that this is an advisor. So it works in the Persistent Petitioner's deck. It gives you some card draw in that deck, gives you some blocking in that deck, but also continues to be an advisor that you can tap to mill out cards from your opponent. So for having those couple of nice versatility things, I don't love cards that really only go in one deck. I don't think that makes them Pauper All-Stars at that point. You gotta work in multiple kinds of decks before I can give you something like that accolade. But it works nicely in some decks, and it works really well in the Advisor Persistent Petitioners deck. So for that, I think it's not too bad. Certainly not the best card, but I think one that will see some Pauper play over the years. And that's not bad. That's nothing to sneeze at, rather. Number 19, is Ilvoy Galeblade. For a single blue mana, you get a 1/1 Jellyfish Warrior. It's got flash and flying, and you can pay 2 and sacrifice this creature to draw a card. This is just solid. This it doesn't necessarily replace Harrier Strix or Network Operative Network. I forgot what it's called. The Kamigawa Moonfolk that comes in and taps a creature as well. It doesn't necessarily replace those. You might still want to play those cards instead of Galeblade, but Galeblade being flash speed, just a 1/1 flyer with flash is nice for a single mana. That's really nice in the fairies decks. It's generally you want to play those fairies, but this is not the worst one to play. It's also a pretty good option, within those fairies decks, those ninja decks. It works of one mines where, this isn't a human. So you're still getting those 2 cards, or getting the cheaper cost for of one mind with those. At flash speed, you can do more blue things with this. You can hold up your counter spells and then play this at flash speed at the end. Having flash kind of protects the creature as well, that you're not getting killed by the opponent, so you can swing in the next turn and get your ninja out. I think there's just lots of reasons to like this little guy. If this thing was a fairy, it would be maybe number 1 on this list, but not being a fairy does take it down a little bit, but not that much, honestly. And I have a fairy ninja deck, and this got copies immediately. I was like, this is great. I took out my Network Disruptors. I think that's what they're called. I took out my Network Disruptors, put this thing in. I was never the biggest fan of Harrier Strix, but yeah, I think this is a great upgrade for those kinds of decks. And I like the sacrifice effect too. If you need to later in the game, maybe when you have a bunch of your ninjas out and you're just kind of looking to draw a little bit more gas, putting this out as maybe even a blocker that blocks a flyer, and then you sack it for the 2 mana and you draw a card. That's not bad. This is also kind of 3 mana draw a card, because you play it for 1, and then you pay 2 more to sacrifice it. So if you really need a cantrip, you can do this all at the end of an opponent's turn of just paying 1, then paying 2, sack it, draw that card. A cantrip for 3 isn't amazing, but if it's late in the game and you need it, this guy's there for you. I like this card quite a bit. And it's my number 19. Probably could have been higher. Number 18, Another Spider-Man card. This is Bagel and Schmear. This is another food. It's 1 mana for this artifact, and you can either share for a single white mana. You can tap and sack this artifact to put a 1/1 counter on up to one target creature and draw a card. Play that as a sorcery. Or you can Nosh, which is 2 mana, tap and sacrifice this artifact. You gain 3 life, and you draw a card. I like that both modes allow you to draw the card. That's pretty cool. And I like the 1/1 counter. I think that could be useful sometimes, and I like having the option. It's nice to know that your food token can do a little bit more. And this one, if you have a deck that cares about modifications, and there's a card that we'll see a little later that cares about modifications, this is a nice way to modify it. It's also just a nice way of upgrading a creature. If you're playing those Mirror Enforcers, and now you can play the Bagel and Schmear and upgrade that Mirror Enforcer to a 5/5. Well, now you can block the Gurmag Angler. Now you can trade with the Gurmag Angler. Now you can trade with the Tolarian Terror. Now you can trade with the Cryptic Serpent. And those are good things that 4/4 could not do on its own. So I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. I do wish the +1/+1 counter could be at instant speed. That would be really cool to have the combat trick basically just on the table at any time. But it's still all right. I don't love the name. I don't love that it's Spider-Man. But I think the mechanics on the card are pretty good and pretty versatile. And that is why it is my number 18. Number 17 is Humbling Elder. For a single blue mana, you get a 1/2 human monk. It's got flash, and when this creature enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -2, -0 until end of turn. This also kind of goes in fairies. I've seen people put it in their fairies lists or some other similar kind of blue tricky lists. It is not in my fairies deck. I don't love it as much, but I understand where it's pretty cool to use this as kind of a combat trick. It's also another flash creature like the Gale Blade that can come in. And you know what? Honestly, I would flip the Gale Blade and this now that I'm thinking about it. But I still think this is a pretty good card as well. Does some decent work in fairies and some other shells. Works kind of as a combat trick. Works as an instant speed blocker that can mess up opponents. It's also a single blue mana. It just does good stuff. It does lots of little good work. It's not going to be the best card in your deck, but it's going to have a job most turns. Most turns you will be able to play this and get good value off it. And I think that's important. Our next card, which is number 16, is Suplex. Going to Suplex City. 1 and a red for a sorcery that says choose one. Suplex deals 3 damage to target creature. If that creature would die this turn, you exile it instead, or you exile target artifact. I think you've been seeing just the idea of modality on a lot of these cards, or versatility at least, from a lot of these cards that I've shown. And this one is no different. having these 2 modes, both solid modes, makes this a really good sideboard piece for basically any deck that's running red. So either you get sorcery speed 3 damage to a creature. That's not amazing. You can just lightning bolt for better at instant speed, the same amount of damage. You can even go face with lightning bolts. Lightning bolt, classic Magic card, goes in basically every red deck. It's awesome. They don't print lightning bolt anymore or as much anymore because it's so good. They're kind of scared of it. So this option of 3 damage to a creature at sorcery speed, not amazing, but the exiling is kind of nice. That could be useful sometimes to just make sure the creature gets exiled, gets out of there. You don't have to worry about it anymore. The one that you're probably playing more, the option that you're probably playing more, is the exile target artifact. There's so many decks that continue to use the Modern Horizons artifact lands, the bridges, and those indestructible lands. It's real easy to just exile them away. Get rid of some of their fixing, get rid of some of their mana completely. For just 2 mana, a 2 mana Stone Rain on a dual land. Okay, better than a Stone Rain. It doesn't even go to the graveyard. It exiles it. It's gone. Burned. I think Suplex is great. I I don't think I currently run it in any decks, but I also don't run a whole lot of red decks. I have a lot of copies of this card though, because I know that when I make those decks, this is going to be a sideboard piece for it. It's pretty good. We still have like Cast into the Fire from Lord of the Rings from last year, and that one's also really good. Dust to Dust is still a really good option when you think of white decks that want to exile artifacts, but Suplex is pretty good. And again, it's target artifact. It's not even artifact land or anything like that. Like you can use this on creatures as well. Like if somebody has like a big scary Maelstrom Colossus or something like that, exile this thing away for 2 mana. Not bad. I like it. Next up, what is this? Number 15? Yeah, number 15. This is honestly, it's 15 on the list, but I think this is like one of my top 3 Pauper cards of this year. I really, really like Dai Indoctrination. I don't think I'd have to go back to my big Avatar. Let's rate all the Pauper cards video and see what I gave this. But I have really come around to loving this card. Dai Indoctrination is 1 and a black for a sorcery that is also a lesson. You can choose one. Either target opponent reveals their hand, you choose a non-land permanent card from it, and that player discards that card, or you Earthbend 2. That means target land you control becomes a 0/0 creature with haste that's still a land. You put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and when it dies or is exiled, you return it to the battlefield tapped. Again, modality, versatility, whatever you want to call it. I think this card has it. It's really nice. You get a Divest for an extra mana, which doesn't sound amazing. When you could just play Divest. But you can also Earthbend 2. And Earthbending, I have really found to be great. Earthbending seems really good. This is one of the few Earthbending cards in black. There's one more in Pauper. I think it's a creature that when it dies, you get to Earthbend. I like this one a whole lot better, just as you get more of the agency of when you Earthbend. We just talked about those artifact lands, the bridges from Modern Horizons and Suplex being good against them. Yeah, you know what's good against Suplex is turning those bridges into 2/2 indestructible creatures. Those can block for days, and if somebody does try to suplex them or cast into the fire them or get rid of them in any way, doesn't matter if they're killed, doesn't matter if they're exiled, they come back to the battlefield tapped. So it's a way of protecting your lands, which is really nice too, but having them be a 2/2 creature, solid. A 2/2 indestructible, blocks forever, awesome. And if you have more copies of Dai Indoctrination, it doesn't say it has to be a non-creature land. You can keep Earthbending the same creature land. You turn your 2/2 into a 4/4 into a 6/6. Now you're talking. That's pretty cool. I have a deck that specifically is playing like the Kenku package. So you play Kenku, you turn one of your artifact lands into a 4/4 flying land. Great. And then you could just keep Earthbending that same land with this. Okay. That's really damn good. I think this card is really cool. And the other option, the other option on this card isn't bad either. Having that Divest is really good against, I bring it up all the time, but those Tolarian Terror decks, one of the most popular decks in the format. It's a great way of just getting that out of the hand. You don't have to worry about their 8 big hits. Like that deck has 8 big hits, and they want to get those 8 creatures out. And if you have this that's able to take one of those out, great. That's one very important threat you don't have to worry about, and now you're down to 7 threats. Pretty good. This is good against like a Jund Wildfire deck because you're taking out the Writhing Chrysalis. Any deck that runs Writhing Chrysalis, that is a scary card you don't want to play against. And having an option to just make them discarded right out of their hand, I like it. I like it. This is such a good card. People are sleeping on this one. You need to pick this card up and pick up 4 copies. 6 cents. Man, that's really good. Probably my favorite card from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Really, really good. Next up is number 14. It is Town Greeter from Final Fantasy. For 1 and a green, you get a 1/1 human citizen. When this creature enters, you mill 4 cards. You may put a land card from among them into your hand. If you put a town card into your hand this way, you gain 2 life. So this is not really anything new. We have a card, is it Satyr Wayfinder, I believe it's Satyr Wayfinder, that can mill 4 cards and put a land back in your hand. Fine. Why do you need more? Well, you need more because the dredge decks want it. I guess the spy combo decks also want it. I don't like spy combo. I'm a dredge guy, and I think spy combo has ruined my lovely dredge. I would like to see Balustrade Spy be banned from the format, so I can go back to just liking dredge and not having everybody think I'm playing spy combo whenever I play it. Town Greeter, though, having another 4 copies of your Satyr Wayfinder in your deck is great. You know, you're not really playing towns. I have never seen anybody play towns with this card. So the life gain, even though it can do that, not a huge deal. But Satyr Wayfinder having that mill 4 is so much better than the Inoc Wayfinder and the whatever the elemental is from Brothers War. Those just mill 3. They're fine cards, you know, and they can even get a +1/+1 counter on them. That's kind of okay, but you'd rather just the 4th card in a dredge deck, in a deck that wants cards to go to the graveyard. Having that extra card means a lot. Town Greeter, solid card, and then you can dread return it away. You know, use the sacrifice, the 3 creatures. This can be one of those creatures, and then you bring in your Troll of Khazad-dûn or something like that. I think Town Greeter's great. It's nothing flashy. It just goes in that deck, and it does great in that deck. It's good enough for me. Number 13, is Gene Pollinator. Old Gene himself. Single green mana for a 1/2 artifact creature robot insect. You can tap it and tap an untapped permanent you control to add 1 mana of any color. This is solid. This is a Springleaf Drum with maybe a couple extra steps. But Springleaf Drum's a pretty good card that does see some Pauper play. And having this be a Springleaf Drum on a 1/2 body, so that's able to block some stuff, is pretty good. Being able to tap an untapped permanent you control, I believe Springleaf Drum is only a creature. So having this be an untapped permanent lets you do it with clue tokens or food tokens or whatever little tokens you get, little artifacts that go on the field. You know, if you're playing the Tithing Blade or something like that. What does Tithing Blade do when it's on the field? Not much, but now you can tap it for mana and fix your colors. That's pretty cool. Gene Pollinator's a solid card. I have not found my place. I don't have a deck that wants Gene Pollinator yet, but I've seen people play Gene Pollinator, and every time they do, it ends up doing a lot of work. Like, this does work in Standard right now. This is a good Standard card, and it's also a pretty darn good Pauper card too. Something to look into. Next up is number 12. And that is Summon Chocomog. Summon Chocomog is 2 and a white for a 3/3 enchantment creature that is a Saga Bird Moogle. And as sagas do, when this saga enters, and after your draw step, you add a lore counter and you sacrifice it after turn 4 or chapter 4. All 4 chapters of the same chapter, or the same effect rather. On chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, you get Stampede. Other creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Okay. This really only goes in the one deck. It only goes in the White Weenie deck. Sometimes it goes in the White Weenie deck. I've seen, people still sometimes play their Militia Buglers instead of Summon Chocomog, but I think overall the value of this card has established this is the one that goes in the decks now. Being a saga creature, or being a creature, it has summoning sickness. So even though you get the effect of Stampede on the turn you play it, which is nice, it's cool that it has an effect when it comes into play. Well, basically when it comes into play. That's all right. That's okay. You don't mind that creature can't attack because it does buff all your other creatures. You get 2 more turns when it can attack. So turns 2 and 3 when this thing's out, it buffs all of your other creatures rather, but you can still swing in with this 3/3. That's not bad either. And then turn 4, it gives you the effect, but then it dies, gets sacrificed. And, it sucks that you only get your 3/3 to attack for a couple turns, but you get that effect for 4 straight turns. And if you're playing White Weenie, you've flooded the board with stuff, probably like a bunch of Battle Screeched Birds. And now they all get +1/+0. That's really tough for an opponent to handle. I I think this card has pretty great value. And I have a friend who has a white weenie deck. They play copies of this card in there, and they mostly mostly do a whole lot of work. This is a solid card, one you should consider if you haven't considered it before. That was number 12. Now on to number 11, another Final Fantasy card. It is World Map. World Map's a single mana for an artifact. You can pay 1 and tap and sacrifice this artifact to search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Or you can pay 3, tap, and sacrifice this artifact to search your library for a land card, any land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. All right, so we already have Expedition Map, which kind of does this better. Like I can just Expedition Map. So this can find the land for any land for 2 mana, and it still comes up. So you are getting a cheaper effect with that. But if you are in a Tron deck, which is where you're going to play this, you want more copies of Expedition Map. Like, sure, you'd love to have Expedition Map, but you really also want to have 4 copies of World Map in there as well, because getting to Tron is the most important part of a Tron deck, and you don't mind having another couple copies, even slightly worse copies of Expedition Map, to guarantee that Tron as early as possible, so then you can start doing messed up Tron things. So World Map is a really good card for that. And you know what? The first effect isn't the worst thing in the world either. If you're in Tron and you do need one of those basics, maybe you already have Tron, but you just kind of need the color land at this point. You need some kind of color pip. You just go find the forest, or you go find the island, or whatever you need in Tron, and then you can play that. But it's nice that it has that utility on it as well, even though you're mostly going to use it for the Tron part. It really only goes in Tron, but man, it makes a big difference in Tron, so you'll play it there. We are on to our top 10. Number 10 is our last food. Yes, it's our last food of the video. It is Nutrient Block. For 1 single mana, you get an artifact food that is indestructible. And also, you can pay 2, tap it, sacrifice this artifact, and you gain 3 life. But when this artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card. All right. I think generally the 3 foods that I've shown, Instant Ramen, Bagel and Schmear, and Nutrient Block, all kind of feel somewhat interchangeable. I think there's reasons that you'll want to play one over the other, and there's generally an even amount of reasons for each one. But I think Nutrient Block is the best because of that indestructibility. You know, if you're playing a Kenku deck, it's nice to have some other indestructible artifacts that are not just your lands. If you're playing, I'm trying to think of anything else. I know there's other ways of making artifacts into creatures. But it's also nice to just have an indestructible thing on the board. You know this thing isn't going anywhere. It's a food that also, so you're getting the life gain off it. It cantrips when you sacrifice it. I think there's a lot of utility, a lot of usefulness to a card like this. But I'm mostly thinking about Kenku decks. But Kenku decks love this card. You kidding me? Like they would have to play the, what is it, like Darksteel Axe or something like that, and that card's fine, but it's nothing special. It doesn't really do much of anything other than be a target for Kenku. This is a target for Kenku, but also life gain when you need it, also card draw when you need it. Like those things matter. And Nutrient Block is a nice upgrade for decks that were probably playing 4 Darksteel Axes and thinking, well, this card is just kind of a dud in my hand when I don't have Kenku. This card is never a dud because it always can draw you a card. It can always gain you life. Those are good things. And then if you do have the Kenku, then it becomes a 4/4 flying indestructible creature, which is also very good. I like Nutrient Block quite a bit, and that is why it is my number 10. Number 9, Skyward Spider is a hybrid Azorius for a 2/2 Spider Human Hero. It's got Ward 2, which is really nice. So whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you counter it unless that player pays 2. It's great. It's really great on Tolarian Terror, that's for sure. But the reason this card is even a little bit better than just the Ward 2 would make it seem is this creature has flying as long as it's modified. We talked about it with Bagel and Schmear. This is the one I was talking about. Giving this creature a +1/+1 counter makes it a 3/3 flyer for 2. Okay. This goes really well with equipment. Sorry, modifications, equipment, auras, and counters. So if any of one of those things are on this creature, it becomes modified, and then it gets the flying. So this is really good for equipment decks. I'm actually working on an equipment deck right now that plays a couple copies of Skyward Spider, knowing that it's really nice to have a creature that flies that's already a 2/2, so getting any equipment on it's going to make it even better. Having the ward makes it really hard to deal with. Just super solid. The hybrid mana also allows it to go in blue decks, white decks, obviously Azorius decks, but does give it some a little bit of versatility in terms of what kind of decks you play it in. The deck I'm building is Boros deck with equipment. That's mostly the Boros colors. So to have something where I'm just having to pay the white is nice. It's really nice to just be able to have that option. I think this is a cool card. I think it might even gain value as we continue to see better equipment, better auras, lots of things that could make this card even better going forward into 2026 and beyond. I think it's good, even if it's a Spider-Man card. I do think it's good. That was my number 9. Yes, number 9. Number 8 is Origin of Metal Bending. So for 1 and a green, you get an instant. That's a lesson. You choose one. You either destroy target artifact or enchantment, or you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and it gains indestructible until end of turn. All right. Wizards keeps doing this. Can we find a better naturalize? How do you build a better naturalize? And they seem to do it basically all the time. We've seen Return to Nature, and now we see Origin of Metal Bending. And honestly, this isn't even the best one that came out this year. We'll talk about the best naturalize here in a second. But this one is also really good. And it's good for a couple reasons. The protection spell part of it is nice. You don't necessarily have to play Snakeskin Veils. The places where you play Snakeskin Veil. Maybe it's nice to have this here instead to give you more of that modality. It's not exactly a Snakeskin Veil. It gives indestructible instead of hexproof, but generally those things are somewhat interchangeable. Indestructible might even be better, knowing that you're going to be able to block creatures with it as well. That's and potentially even be a combat trick, which is super nice. But destroying a target artifact or enchantment, you have that naturalize. That's always comes in handy. It's really nice to have. There's lots of different kinds of decks that opponents can play that will use enchantments, that will use artifacts especially, but both get played. And this is just a nice card that handles any or all of those things. And it's also a lesson, which is really nice. That if you're playing those cards that learn, and there aren't a whole lot of good cards that learn, but when you do play cards that learn, you can go grab this just out of the sideboard. You don't even have to play it in your main deck. You just keep it in the sideboard, and the learn card will tutor it from your sideboard, and that's super nice. So this is a great card to just put in your sideboard as a regular old sideboard piece. Like even if you're not playing the learn stuff, this is a great card to swap in, sideboard in when you need it. But also you can main board the learn cards and have access to this as well as other lessons. We might see another lesson come up soon as well, but we've also seen Daily Indoctrination if you wanted to go somewhere that route as well. Having those options available to you is really nice. Really nice. And also note that we do have Strixhaven coming back in 2026. We don't know for a fact that there are going to be learn cards in there, but I would have to imagine there are going to be new learn cards if we just put lessons back into standard. So I would be shocked if we didn't get new learn cards that would pair well with this mechanic. So Origin of Metal Bending, really good, really versatile. I think it's a very good naturalize variant. But the best naturalized variant is our next card at number 7, Heritage Reclamation. Also, for 1 and a green, you get an instant that says choose one, either destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard, and you draw a card. Okay, let's look at Return to Nature. Return to Nature. Seems extremely similar, right? 1 and a green, instant, destroy an artifact, destroy an enchantment, or exile a card from a graveyard. Same thing. Basically the same card, except, this one draws a card. And to be able to have some instant speed, graveyard hate that also pays itself back, that gives you that card, that cantrips there. Huge. This is really good for against the spy decks that want to bring in back that Lotleth Giant. You exile just that 1 card, and you also draw a card. Really good. Really good. There's a lot of decks that this probably doesn't work as well. There's plenty of decks that just want to mill tons and tons of cards into their graveyard. Is this going to be good against Tolarian Terror? Not really. You exile 1 instant from their graveyard. They're just going to put 6 more in the next turn. So it's not foolproof graveyard hate. But as targeted graveyard hate that can take out very specific targets, solid, and draws the card. Great. Plus, it has the naturalize. And having all of those options available to you in a single card is so good. Some days you'll want to play Origin of Metal Bending. Some days you'll want to play Heritage Reclamation. I think Heritage generally is the better card, but both are very good. And as far as naturalized effects go, I'm finding it hard to see how Wizards can make them better. Like, at this mana cost, with this much stuff that they can do, I really am struggling to see how you make a better naturalized than the ones we have. I'd love to see them try, but so far, I think these are 2 of the best we've ever seen. Our number 6? Yes, number 6 coming up is Pactol Terror. Pactol Terror is 3 and a black for a 3/4 artifact creature toy. Whenever this creature or another artifact you control enters, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Don't love the art on this card. Very much don't. Ether Drift, not necessarily one of the most exciting sets. Not necessarily impactful. Like, there's some pretty impactful cards in it. I think we actually see another Ether Drift card on this list at some point. But Pactol Terror is damn good. Like, this is the finisher. This is the top end of what you play in any black deck that plays a lot of artifacts. You see this in some Eggstron kind of decks that will just keep flickering stuff that can potentially do infinite combos of draining your opponents for all their life and you gaining infinite life. That's pretty good. But even as something that you're just playing at the top end and you're playing a lot of artifacts, this does work. This burns the opponent. It gains you life. It keeps you in the game. 3/4s, not terrible stats that can do some stuff with, and just gains you a decent amount of value over the course of the game. Is it better than like a Murmuring Mystic? Probably not. I think Murmuring Mystic still is better in a lot of instances, but as something that is dealing with artifacts, it works in a slightly different space. It's been seen in a number of different kinds of shells, and I think it's pretty effective in most of those shells. 4 mana is a little expensive for what Pauper likes to play with, but I think it's kind of worth it with the top end that this is able to do. I think this ends games and does it pretty strongly. I think this is a solid card. That is why it is our number 6. Number 5, hey, it's another Ether Drift card. Grim Bauble is a single black mana for an artifact. When this artifact enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. And it can also, for 2 and a black, you can tap and sacrifice this artifact to Surveil 2. This is just solid. Solid little removal piece, but it's a solid removal piece that is also an artifact that stays on the board. Really great for your affinity stuff. Really great to blink and or bounce. And even when you can't blink or bounce it, it does have that added ability of being able to sacrifice itself and give you some card selection with the Surveil, or maybe even kind of card draw if you're a deck that really wants cards in the graveyard. Surveil sometimes is just as good as a card draw, right? I think Grim Bauble has seen a lot of play in a lot of different kinds of decks, certainly from the kind of Orzhov Blade and Bounce shells, but also in lots of affinity kind of decks. It does a lot of work. In Rakdos affinity kind of decks, Jund affinity kind of decks. It's it's good. It's a good card. It takes out some fairies. It takes out some ninjas. It takes out Delver of Secrets. It stops a lot of important creatures on the opponent's side, and then you can just keep bouncing and flickering it and doing it all over again. This is a really solid card, a solid removal spell that works really nicely with Tithing Blade. I've got one deck where I've got two Baubles and two Tithing Blades, and then I have two more Baubles and two more Tithing Blades in the sideboard, and I kind of just based on what matchup I'm going on, like which of these cards is better for this one, and I'll bring in either two more Baubles or two more Blades, or sometimes all of them if I really just need to have a complete removal fest. But this card can do a lot of work. It is my number 5, right? Yeah, number 5. Number 4, another one of my favorite cards that came out of the common Magic the Gathering cards this year. It is Black Mage's Rod. I always thought this card was rad. I think I remember some content creators going, this seems fine, I guess. And then seeing the power of it and going, oh, wait, this thing's real good. For 1 and a black, you get an artifact that's an equipment, but it has job select. So when this equipment enters, you create a 1/1 colorless hero creature token and then attach this to it. Equipped creature gets +1/+0, and whenever you cast... equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent and is a wizard in addition to its other types. And it equips for 3. Great card. Just great card. So it's a card that does indirect damage. So it's a nice way of burning down the opponent. It's an artifact, so it works in lots of affinity kind of shells. It's puts down bodies. It does something when it enters. So if you were in like a blink bounce shell, okay, you can just make a bunch of 1/1 creatures with this. Cool. The thing I like most about it though is if you put 4 copies in your deck, they play off each other. This is a non-creature spell. Comes into play, but also makes a creature. So you're able to put creatures out on the field while still getting the effect of being non-creature spells. So these things are triggering off each other, and then when you have more than one on the field, now you're doing chunks of damage, and you're really doing some cool stuff. I've got 4 copies of these in my Dimir Affinity, Blinky, Bouncy, Kenku. Lots of cool stuff that you can do with that. And this card is incredible. It really does a ton of damage over the course of a game. And even when an opponent tries to deal with it by killing the creature that it's attached to, well, now you can equip it to something else. Imagine, in that Dimir deck that I was talking about, you Kenku'd one of your artifact lands that's indestructible. So now you have this indestructible 3/3 flying 3/3 4/4. I can't remember. I think they're 3/3s. Indestructible land that flies. Now you equip this to it. So now it gets an extra point of power. Now it's even harder to get rid of because it's on an indestructible creature, and you're still just continuing to ping down opponents. I love Black Mage's Rod. I think this card is so good. So good. It can go in a lot of different kinds of decks, and it does really well in all of them. It's really, really good card. My number 4. Number 3 is Melded Moxite. For 1 and a red, you get an artifact that says when this artifact enters, you may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. Then you can pay 3, sacrifice this artifact, and create a tapped 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. All right, we've seen a ton of these before. We saw a ton of these last year, but we see even more this year. These things that come down, spells that you cast where you discard a card and you draw 2 cards. The sneaky snacker decks love cards like these. Even the decks that are madness decks love these Love these cards. Great, solid card, goes in any of those. And we've seen plenty of those cards that will have like little gravy extras on them. You know, you saw what am I thinking of? You saw Grab the Prize from last year, where it can do a little damage to the opponent's face. Solid, we don't mind that. Even this year, it didn't make the list, but Laughing Mad from Final Fantasy, that's the one with Kefka's big face on it. That has flashback, so cool to have that effect that you can play twice on one card. Nice, like that. But I really like Melded Moxite for its ability to sacrifice it. Well, a couple of reasons. One is that it's an artifact. So if you are playing affinity kind of stuff, this is another just artifact that sits on the table, accrues that affinity value, gets your Mirror Enforcers, gets your Frogmites out faster, works great with those. But also being able to sacrifice itself on the table and become a 2/2 colorless robot creature, that's solid too. It reminds me a lot of the Experimental Synthesizer, which is a hugely popular card in Pauper. And to have another thing that can make creatures at instant speed. Now they're tapped, so you kind of have to do it at the end of your opponent's turn, so you get the creature. You're not going to be able to do this as like a combat trick to bring in a creature and block instantly. But I still think that's pretty good. A 2/2 for 3 mana is not amazing, but a 2/2 for 3 mana when you have nothing else to do on your turn, awesome. Just awesome. I have no problems with this card. I think it works in a lot of different decks. The reason it's probably not higher is because there was another card that was just kind of slightly better than it. And we're about to talk about this one, but I really like Melded Moxite. It's a good card, and definitely has a lot of value in all those decks that I talked about. While Grab the Prize is still probably better for some of those shells, I think Melded Moxite can go in a lot of different ones. And good card. That's our number 3. Our number 2 is Abandoned Attachments. So 1 and is it hybrid, so blue or red, for an instant speed lesson. You may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. Sounds worse than Moxite, right? It does less. This is just a normal discard 1, draw 2. Yeah, the snacker decks like it, but why would they like it over the Moxite? Well, the reason they do is because this hybrid mana symbol right there says you don't have to play this in red. You can now play redless Sneaky Snackers and do just fine with them. Discard them to this, get them back on the field with this. Fantastic. I think this has the ability, I don't know how many people are doing this, but it has the ability to go in Tolarian Terror decks, and you don't need to play the Delver of Secrets anymore. So instead of playing Delver of Secrets, now you can play 4 Sneaky Snackers and play Abandoned Attachments. This is another way of this can put 2 instants or sorceries in your graveyard, because you have to discard a card and then you draw 2. But you can still discard the Sneaky Snacker and do that trick again. Or even on other turns, if Sneaky Snackers are in your graveyard already, now you can discard another instant or sorcery and get any and or all of those Sneaky Snackers back by playing this. Just being able to play this in any non-red blue deck, like any deck that is not playing red but is playing blue and wants this kind of effect, now they've got it. And I think this card is only going to become more valuable as time goes on. Having this kind of effect in a different style of deck is really important. Sneaky Snacker has become a very good card, and it only keeps getting better as we get more of these kinds of effects, and these kinds of effects are now getting more and more valuable as they become more and more versatile. Abandoned Attachments is an incredible card. I think a lot of people, well, you know what? I don't think a lot of people would say it's their number 1, because our number 1 card is probably the card you expect it to be. It is Cryogen Relic. Of course it is. Of course it is. This card is so good. So good. Cryogen Relic, 1 and a blue for an artifact. When this artifact enters or leaves the battlefield, you draw a card. And for 1 and a blue, you can sacrifice this artifact and put a stun counter on up to 1 target tapped creature. If a permanent with a stun counter would become untapped, you remove 1 stun counter from it instead. Okay. This is, in some ways, an Eager Wellspring, right? It's a 2 mana artifact that you play, and you cantrips, you draw another card. Okay. Eager Wellspring says when Eager Wellspring goes into the graveyard, you can draw another card. So a lot of people like it for the sacrifice decks. You sacrifice an artifact, you draw two. Well, now you draw a third because of the Eager Wellspring. Good stuff. Cryogen Relic says, well, I can work in those decks too. So if you're playing any kind of blue black deck, this works fine with all of those sacrifice and artifact effects. You still draw the third card, great. But the bounce decks, the blink decks, want this too because it says leaves the battlefield, not just goes in the graveyard. So you can get some crazy card advantage with this thing. If you blink this thing, it leaves the battlefield, you draw a card, and then it comes back into the battlefield and you draw another card. Okay, that sounds great. Nothing wrong with that. It's so much value. It is so much value, and the last part of it is nothing to sneeze at either. Just a little tempo play. Your opponent has a big creature. Okay, well, I'll sacrifice this thing, draw a card because it left the battlefield, and you put a stun counter on that creature, stops them from attacking for a turn. Great. Yeah, fine by me. Just slows down the opponent, gives you a little tempo, draws you a card, keeps you in the game, accrues that value. This card does so much. Just an absolute ton of work that this card can do. You saw the Orzhov Blade decks become Esper Blade decks solely to fit 4 copies of this card in there. And maybe like some of the blink effects as well, but for the most part, they're really only splashing blue for this card. I've seen a lot of decks that have only splashed blue just so they can get Cryogen Relic in there. It's incredible. It is incredible how much this card has not warped the format exactly. I think this is a completely fair card and completely fine card. I don't think it's going to get banned at any point. But a card that people find enough value in that they are trying to sneak in ways of splashing blue to decks that would not play blue just so they can play this card. It is that good. It is that impactful. It wins games. It does incredible work. Fantastic card. My best favorite card. I think actually Black Mage's Rod is my favorite card, but Cryogen Relic is a close second. And I can certainly admit that this is the best and most impactful card that came out in the Pauper format in 2025. That is it. Those are our 26 if you count Brambleworm, 26 cards of the year. Did I do well? Do you have another card that you think needed to be on this list that deserved a spot over something else? Do you not like the order of something? You know, like I said, I probably would switch Ilvoy Galeblade and Humbling Elder at this point. But, you know, that's, you know, splitting hairs, I think, a little bit. But if there's a card that you think is completely missing, tell me where it should go. Tell me why you think so. And I'm cautiously interested in 2026. I don't love Universes Beyond sets generally, and I think the Universes Beyond sets that we're getting next year are really not that exciting to me. You know, I like Final Fantasy. I liked Lord of the Rings. Avatar's okay. Seeing us go into Star Trek and more Marvel and other things like that, I'm not as into. Hobbit could be interesting, I guess. Turtles, don't really want it in my Magic, but I'm interested to see what the cards can be, because even as we saw here, Spider-Man cards made the list, Ether Drift cards made the list. There wasn't a single set that came out this year that had no value for Pauper, and I think that's cool. So I am interested to see. We get 7 sets next year. That's a lot of sets. That's a lot of new commons coming out, and I'm interested to see what cards from those are going to show up and change the Pauper format, hopefully for the better. So I'll be with you this whole next year, rating common cards, looking at full set reviews of the commons for Pauper, for new sets. Lorwyn's going to be really exciting. I'm very excited for that one. Lots of good stuff. So hopefully you will join along for the ride. Come with me as I look through some common Magic the Gathering cards. And we'll see if 2026 is good for you too. Till then, see you later.